Audio Jungle.
Welcome to another episode of The Cuff, here with me, Joey Rasdien. Today, I am very fortunate firstly, if you liked all the other videos, please subscribe and click the like button and put on your notifications. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I am very privileged to actually interview the uncle of Denzel Dolley. He's actually a bigger legend than Denzel Dolley, in my opinion, from the stories I've heard and the research I've done. Please welcome Gary Dolley. Hello, Uncle Gary. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much, Joey. And yeah, it's nice to be here.
Lekker, man. So the whole purpose of all these interviews I'm doing is is specifically to find out what is in the water in Galvindale, and why did Galvindale produce so many great sports people and great administrators and great people in general, outstanding young people. Like most of my friends as from PE is like outstanding young people, and that's the reason for these interviews. So it's an honor for us to have you here. It was a bit difficult to track you down, and for the people that don't know Uncle Gary, so Uncle Gary is the founding member of the Cavaliers Hockey Club. Uncle Gary was one of the biggest, how do I say this now, influences in SACOS, and how we tried to get to a non-racial sports environment in a SACOS era. He played for Western Province, he played for Eastern Province, he played for South Africa, and he did lots for SACOS at the time, and he played in that organization, sporting codes as well. So that's where I want to start, Uncle Gary. Tell us about how the difficulties you had during the SACOS time, and tell us about what did you achieve and what would you have wanted to achieve during that time.
Joey, thank you very much. I think the important thing, is all about your grounding, is the family values that we espouse to. So it's important that if you have a look at the Galvindale area, because it's a very, very small geographic area, the families had a massive impact in our upbringing. The second point there is the dedication, in fact, and the commitment of our teachers. Most of the people, when you interview the people, you'll always notice they'll talk about role models. Most of the role models would, in fact, also be teachers and the leadership in terms of, the whole question of religion, irrespective if you're Muslim or a Christian, that is key. So those are the key values in terms of, when we grew up, it was always about the community or neighbors, family, and then quite clearly the influence of the church as well as the school. And so when we played SACOS, yes, it was very, very tough times for us.
Wait, before you go on to SACOS, you just made a big point, and everybody in the interviews said that there was a strong role model in how you have to be as a person at schools. And you taught at St. Thomas School, High School, St. Thomas High School, and you were teaching guys like Tandon Manana, I take it, and Alviro Peterson, Ashel Prince, and Lloyd Prince. So I take it you. So and from what I've heard is that you were one of their role models, and this is, you're going to speak about SACOS. I just want to get to this question as well. When you were at St. Thomas, there was minimum resources, yet the players that came out of St. Thomas played at the highest level with minimum resources. I want to tap into your brain as to how you got to do that, how that happened, and then, but you can answer that after the SACOS.
Yeah, so let's tackle that one first, because I think that's an important point. I think it's such a misnomer that, when it talks about the lack of facilities, we always talk about the lack of facilities, but you'll notice that in the past, those were challenges, lack of facilities. But I think that the hard work, the ethic of commitment, passion, those things were overcome. And I think sometimes, especially now, we equate, in fact, now, facilities with privilege and with talent, which is not true. If you have the proper work ethic and you have the vision and you've got proper leaders, you can overcome anything. Phenomena where we say we don't have, it's almost like a victim mentality. And I think that in our era, we were not victims, in fact, we became victors. And I think that's an important point. And it's so true. Within the SACOS, let's call it fold, in terms of that era, there was a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, and we had a common enemy. So we played, in fact, to overcome our let's call it now, our physical challenges. And that for me was very, very, very important, because there was a vision within the sports movement, within the communities, that we had to uplift ourselves, create our own opportunities by hard work. So that even within Thomas as well, I think we've created the opportunity, right, for the participants or for the players to excel through passion, hard work, and in commitment as well.
You touched on something that is victims versus victors. How because the mindset is totally different. How at the time, I'll give you an example. I think I interviewed Denzel, and Denzel was saying to me, although they had little, it felt like they had a lot. And Denzel is your nephew. Although they had, what does that, besides the discipline and the family and the church, what does it take to think like that? I think that is an important question.
I think that type of mindset is most probably is so important to change the mindset. Burden to yourself, because while you are trapped almost in the past, all of the players and all of the people that from that particular era, I think, had a very, very clear vision of the future, right? Very, very clear vision of the future. And that for me is critical, because the moment you start, in fact, living in the past, and you're looking at your own challenges and your problems quite clearly, you always become disillusioned. So you need to have a very clear vision of the future. What do you want out of this? And I think that is a mindset for me that needs to change currently as well. And we're wanting people, right, to do things for ourselves, instead of ourselves doing things for ourselves, basically. So most of the things, it's a lot to do with the quality of your thinking. And we had great thinkers, in fact, people that were very positive, right, and creating those opportunities for us as well.
You were speaking about great thinkers. Can you mention a couple of names?
Oh yeah, no, Raymond Uren, great educator, fantastic educator. A lot of passion. You're talking, people like Mr. Mackay, also another headmaster. If you have a look at the quality of our headmasters, those guys were leaders in their own right. So they used to lead the community, with very, very good values. I look at Lawrence Africa. He was the headmaster at St. Thomas. Our primary school headmasters, you look at Mr. Benjamin, at Chapman High School. Guys involved in football fraternity, many guys. I mean, if you look at the cricket fraternity, Mr. Freddie Creel, he was one of my heroes, in fact. He was an educator. Vernon Mahas, in fact, the guys that started Galvin Cricket Club. Mr. said after the 1976 uprising, that is the birth of Galvin Cricket Club. And all of those guys were educators. So the teachers were at the forefront in terms of our club developments. Most of the clubs were led by teachers. And these guys were visionary. They sacrificed a lot for us as players. And I mean, they are the unsung heroes, in fact, in my book.
I remember when I was growing up, we had a guy by the name of, you know him, Mr. Virgie. And he had lots of sons that also became teachers, Mr. Virgie. And yeah, the Virgies. And then my other uncle, they were also teachers, Mr. Sali and Mr. Bakharia. They were also teachers. And I remember when you were growing up, you respected teachers so much that you'd rather become a teacher before you become a doctor, because a teacher held more, you were more in awe with teachers than actually a doctor, when I was growing up at the time, because that was the mindset, because of guys like you, because of guys like Mr. Saleh, because of guys like Mr. Bakharia and stuff. You were speaking about your vision for the future, and when you were growing up, or in that era or in that time, you knew what you wanted to achieve. So tell us about SACOS. When you were in SACOS playing days, because you were a first class cricketer as well, but in SACOS days, what did you want to achieve um, at that time while you were playing?
As I said, I think, you know, when we played sport, the whole question of social, the impact, the social impact that sport played, you play because of your friends, right? So quite clearly you engage. Physical activity was key. In those days, physical education was, you know, in all of the schools, all primary schools, high schools, we had physical education. We had very, very good school sport. Our programs were well oiled. You know, we had annual athletics. Every, you know, January, February, everybody is out doing athletics. So the programs are very, very well structured. So again, as youngsters then, you know, you would always want to, number one, most probably represent the school, because it was very, very competitive. The school sport was exceptionally competitive, to play with your mates as well, to excel. And that also gave you some type of accomplishment, you know. And then even as clubs as well. We played in a club structure, exceptionally well organized, very, very, very well organized. And again, you know, I mean, I represented EP, played EP hockey for many, many years. You know, the pinnacle there was, in fact, receiving just an ordinary badge. So to purchase your own blazer, but we had a ceremony where we had to, in fact, you know, where they handed over the badges. So that token of recognition was phenomenal, you know, and that really binded the community together. The community in terms of support. On a Saturday and a Sunday, the Galvin ground was basically the mecca of sport. So you go to the Galvin ground, irrespective if it's football or tennis. We had some great tennis players, the Bennett brothers, or softball or baseball. I mean, you had a mecca. The entire community, in fact, gravitates, in fact, to the Galvin ground on a Saturday and on a Sunday. And most probably also in other communities as well. You go to East London, you know, very, very similar. At Buffalo Flats, the congregation there, the people would congregate to the fields as well. In Athlone, very, very, very similar, you know. So that was basically the community spirit that gave us a lot of joy to be able to represent, in fact, you know, non-racial sport, because ultimately, in those days, the common enemy was, in fact, apartheid. You see, so we had a common enemy, and we used sport as a vehicle, right, to build our communities. Today, the enemy is not that common. You know,
Yes.
there's corruption, nepotism, you know, poor governance. Those are all enemies, which is not that clear. So I mean, we were very, very well schooled, in fact, in the SACOS days, in terms of what the priorities were. It wasn't about us, but it was about the community. And I think we've lost that community spirit now, specifically in the, let's call it, the new South Africa.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes so much sense, because it's a common enemy and you can focus on one thing at the time. Now you have to focus on tuk. Now you have to focus on nepotism, like you say. Now you have to focus on all these other things. Whereas back in the day, you could just focus on one. You were saying that one of your most proudest moments was getting your badge for your blazer. What about 1992? You traveled to Barcelona, to the Olympics. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, no, that was by default, in fact. I mean, I think I just reached, you know, the end of my playing career. I played for many, many years in the EP, that is in the non-racial fold. And then I just got a phone call. In fact, there was a group of hockey players, you know, and coaches that decided, you know, there's an opportunity now to go and take some age groups, as well as the senior side to just go to the Olympics, the town called Terrassa, and set up camp there and do some preparation. So I was very fortunate. I was included in that. I think we were only 2 non-whites, in fact, in the entire, squad of about 60, under 16s, under 18s, right? Just to explore what's happening. So that was also, a highlight. But for me, as I said again, the important thing there is that, we were denied those opportunities, and there were far more greater players, in fact, in our fold. Guys like Gregory Nip, one of the best hockey players, in fact, I had the honor of playing with. Alan Jacobs, Keith Arnolds. There are so many of these guys that were denied that opportunity. So that opportunity beckoned to me, in fact, in 1992. And it's one of the most memorable, let's call it, opportunities, one of many, in fact.
Yeah, because the year prior to that, you went to Australia and you represented South Africa A team in Australia. How was that? So I just want to maybe clear my mind here. At the time, was it combined, or was it still SACOS, and was it still apartheid sports? Because that was 1991.
Yeah, 91. In fact, that was in Australia. I mean, I went in 93. I went as the vice captain of the SAA side to Zimbabwe. But prior to that, we did an exchange program with the University of Curtin, in Australia, Perth. We were 5 coaches because at that particular point in time, we were sent there from a coaching perspective, to bring back myself, Richard van Briesie is also one of the legends from Port Elizabeth. We were part of that delegation, that was sent there by government to go have a look at the coaching infrastructure, preparing the way forward in terms of, after unification, what type of coaching scheme we could put together. Again, I mean, when we came back, it was very, very hard work trying to persuade people to unify, but also to put in a good coaching program so that we can roll this out. And unfortunately, as I said, that is where it stopped.
But now tell us about the modified hockey program. So it stopped there, but later on, 20 years on, it's more than 20 years on, you have now the modified hockey program. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, so quite clearly, hockey, like cricket, it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive to introduce into communities, specifically if there's a lack of facilities. A modified sport, right, gives you an opportunity to adapt the equipment, right, and to change the rules so that you can, in fact, now deliver a sports program where there is a lack of facilities. Now, what we've done, in fact, you'll notice behind me, I've got some of the sticks that we use. It's all plastic. Very, very similar to the cricket bat as well. So everything is plastic because it's hard wearing, it's quite cheap, right? The ball is a bit bigger, the stick is lighter, right? And you can play this on any smooth surface, right? Any smooth surface. So the idea now is to go into, let's call it, areas where there's a smooth surface like a tennis court or a street, and then you can play a decent, game of hockey. So you have modified the equipment to be able to overcome some of the constraining factors in terms of sport as well. And I'm a very major supporter of modified sport because, again, it's smaller numbers. You don't need sophisticated equipment. It's a fantastic educational tool. And we also, in fact, promote this as part of physical education in schools. Now, very similar to the hockey stick, you also have a plastic ball, right? That, I mean, it's going to cost you next to nothing. Now, the idea is we've introduced this into 400 schools already throughout the country, starting districts, talking about neighborhood leagues, because hockey, as part of the physical education curriculum, is part of that. It's written in the curriculum. All that we need to do is start introducing the modified curriculum into the physical education curriculum. And that, for me, is the game changer. Game changer. We can go into the 25,000 schools by promoting, in fact, modified sport.
Wow.
As part of physical education.
No wonder you were nominated for Best Administrator last year at the South African Sports Awards. Hey, that must have been
Precisely
proud.
because of the program. Yeah, no, the program
Oh,
at the moment, we out of the 52 districts in the country, we're sitting at 28 districts. So by 2022, we want to have a footprint of modified hockey, right, and street hockey, neighborhood leagues in all 52 districts, which is possible.
you were speaking about neighborhood leagues. All the guys that I spoke to, um, the hockey players and the cricket players, and even the soccer players, they had said they always played in a neighborhood league that was basically organized by themselves. It was like this thing that was. It's just a neighborhood league in a street. The street plays against that. Banga Yard cricket. That's what they used to call it.
That's it.
The
I know.
Banga, the
No,
Banga Yard cricket. It
Joey,
was an unofficial type of thing, an unofficial type of, but it was, they took pride in it. They took pride in it. It was like, ja, no, ons speel vandag teen die straat en ons speel vandag teen die straat, maar Sondag en Saterdag speel ons saam vir the cricket club that that is the Galvindale Cricket Club thing a top you have on there, right?
proudly,
Right?
proudly Galvin Cricket Club. Yeah, no, proudly. By Galvin, for Galvin. No, we're very proud, in fact, of the club and the impact. I mean, the club, in fact, I think is one of the most underrated clubs, but one of the most influential clubs in the history of this of cricket in this country.
Yeah,
We've got, you know,
that's my point. So that's why I'm doing all these. And I want to do, hopefully, God willing, we are going to do a proper long documentary, going to the club, going into the fields, going into the places where they played Banga Yard cricket, interviewing you proper again, and Mr. Simon interviewing, because you right now, for the people that don't know, you are right now the president of Galvindale Cricket Club, isn't it?
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And again, people, if you're watching this for the first time, I am telling you now, there is no other club or no other place in maybe the entire world that produce so many people, sports people that played at the highest level of this sport, whether it was cricket or hockey or soccer. From Galvindale, and that is what I can't wrap my mind around that. I can't wrap my mind. You can go watch all the other interviews. That's just some of the people that represented South Africa and their provinces at the highest levels because of Galvindale Cricket Club, because of Galvin. What is your plans for the future of Galvindale Cricket Club?
I know we've got some really serious plans. I mean, I must also acknowledge, in fact, we're one of the few clubs in the country that have a corporate sponsor. We have a naming rights sponsor, BLG. They're one of our sponsors, in fact.
Yeah, BLG Logistics, yeah? Okay, wow.
Precisely. So they've come on board. Now we're talking to them about renewing the sponsor. Currently, we have an academy, and hopefully, you know, with Off the Cuff and the guys organizing the Off the Cuff, Dion and Alviro and all the other players. We want to, in fact, strategize and have a far better footprint in terms of our academy, because that's the future. Currently, we have a Galvindale Cricket Academy on Fridays, focusing on, in our area alone, in about 10 kilometers, we would have, in 10 kilometers radius around the club, you would have close to 40 primary schools. 40 primary schools and about 10 high schools, right?
Wow.
Our facilities at the moment, we upkeep our own facilities. Everything that we do at the club is totally self-sustaining. We've been very successful from a governance perspective because, you know, that's key. People won't put money into any organization if there's issues around governance. So, you know, we are compliant. We're an NPO, registered NPO. Governance structures are there. We are planning to build, in fact, you know, an indoor sports center, an indoor cricket center, right? And I think you used the word earlier on. Two things that you use the word, in fact, that organized and pride. So by doing that, quite clearly, it instills that pride. It belongs to us, right? And we can really determine our own future. So if we have a proper footprint in terms of that 40 schools, taking our own coaches out to those schools, coach during physical education, I believe that model can be replicated throughout the country. And there's a lot of other things quite clearly, getting this model, that's entrenched within the community and start building around the community, right? And let the community dictate where we're going to. So we are very, very excited. At the moment, we've got 4 senior sides, we've got a ladies team. We also have 4 junior teams that participate in the school league. We have our own transport, we have our own combi. So we are very, very well structured, because ultimately what we want to in fact do is to use this as a model that can be replicated in other communities, like in the Shore area, in the Bethelsdorp area, and then take it most probably to East London, take it up to Cape Town, the Athlone area, and most probably to the Northern Cape, and replicate it and start building very, very strong community-based clubs. In fact, at the moment, I think that's a massive problem in our country, is that the club structures very, 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 very poorly administered, but also there's a lack of commitment, in fact, from the national federations and government to support community-based clubs.
I understand now why St. Thomas produced so much great sports people. I understand now just listening to you, and I even get goosebumps just listening to you. The one thing, and this might sound controversial, but it's the truth, is that the club structures in non-white areas is a bit weaker compared to the white clubs. Wanderers, for instance, in Johannesburg, Old Eds, for instance, in Johannesburg. There's Old Parks, there's Pirates Rugby Club, Pirates that's down the road here. In Cape Town, you can name a couple of clubs in Cape Town. In Durban, there's clubs in Durban. So my thing is that what you're doing has been done by the white structures back in the day, and the legacies is still they still getting all the benefits of that legacies that was done from there. So, and I listened to Ashwell Prince and Robin Peterson speaking as coaches the other day, saying that the club structure in South Africa is not as wage should be, because you have all these great school players and then they just get lost, and then you don't know where they are. Whereas if the club structure was, because people don't realize that it can become economically viable as well. So it can be a level below provincial level. So all across all the provinces, if we have presidents like you for all these other clubs from our communities, it can be economically viable as well. You can, it's semi-professional, but you'll have one. I know in Johannesburg, there's a cricket club called Delphos, and they normally try and get Faisal Salih in him. They normally try and get like a semi-professional guy to come in. Lens is another club like that here in Johannesburg. But mostly it's Wanderers and Old Eds, where and obviously the universities. But it's mostly those things. You were saying there was a point that you were touching on. Oh, the indoor center, that sounds so exciting, because I know I played a tournament back in the day, like in the early 90s, when I was at school. SACOS, the week, it was like a week. It was equivalent to the Nuffield week, and I played in East London at the time. And there was baseball, there was swimming, there was diving, there was tennis, and then I played cricket with them. So is that going to be at the Galvin Cricket Club or at the Galvin Sports Grounds?
At the moment, as I said, the Galvin Sports Club is the mecca of sport. You've got 4 or 5 sporting codes sharing that particular facility. So the key thing is also, and I think you're quite correct, you need to have almost a hybrid model. You cannot do handouts. That doesn't work like that. And quite clearly, our municipalities are dysfunctional. They're dysfunctional. If you can do wait for government, I mean, we haven't. That's the reason why I said we are not victims. We don't align ourselves with the politics currently. It's very, very shady in terms of the value systems. So we are saying, guys, it's by time as a community now. We've given far too much, in fact, power to government and these, let's call it, irrelevant structures. So we need to determine our own future. And I think quite clearly by this now, we are going to definitely establish pride within the community. So, you know, again, it's about harnessing the network. And I mean, if I look at the people that you've interviewed, all of these guys are very influential. But unfortunately, from a strategic perspective, you know, we have the silo mentality. We want to do things ourselves. Here we have a club. I'm saying, guys, if we pool all the resources, you know, I mean, I had some discussions with Robin Peterson. I'm saying, guys, our dream one day is to take an under-15 team to India. So it can happen.
It
right?
can
happen. I mean, and what about the Ashwell Prince and the Alvaro Peterson, in fact, Cricket Academy? Why not? Why not? So that is, we need to, in fact, take the level of our thinking higher, because it's about impacting. We cannot operate like we operated in the past. And he says, guys, you know, in the past, we did it like that. There needs to be a business, let's call it, mind behind it. And says,
it must be viable, yeah.
You know, so we've learned from the past, going to the future now. I mean, if you have looked at 40 schools in the northern areas, just within 10-kilometer radius, I think there's a strong business case. So you can imagine now, if we can go do coaching, irrespective of what the sporting code is, during school time, because remember, in the other schools, you would have now, they would appoint coaches, they would pay volunteer coaches. And I'm saying, guys, yes, it's a good model. So why do we adopt the same model? Don't reinvent the wheel.
People. Yeah, for our own
Precisely,
people.
Driven by us, you know. So headmasters need to change their mindsets as well. You see, the headmasters need to change their mindsets, in fact, and give us the opportunity to come and service the schools, because why? We believe we have the expertise when it comes to the sport, and we can get a lot of volunteers. We are ready to go into the schools. It's just that we need to change, in fact, you know, the entire structure. So hopefully, we don't want to, in fact, do something different, but if we start playing modified sport within our community, so in Galvindale, instead of playing somewhere else and using all that money for transport, we start our structures back in our communities. So that is where we're going to. You know, current structure.
Cricket coming back. Yeah.
Yes. Street cricket. You know, I mean, modified cricket. We can play on our field. On our field, we will be able to play 3 matches, because why? We're going to use artificial as well. You see.
Yes.
So changing the mindset. I mean, on one artificial surface, we are playing, in fact, with 80 kids, proper, because you're using a quarter field. So one field translates into 4 fields. You can still have quality. So it is, in fact, just changing mindsets and says, guys, it is all about quality, but giving people the opportunity. And it must happen during school time, physical education. That for me is critical.
You know,
be very excited about the future.
I'm also excited now. I was thinking of becoming an agent, and then just put my office there in Galvindale. So, and see all these young guys, the soccer players, the hockey players, and the cricket players, they must sign with me immediately. So when they have the big contracts of national clubs going to Liverpool, I can actually get a commission there also. That's just a side note. Another side note is one of the most successful coaches in Gauteng is the head coach at Jeppy Boys now, Lance Lowe. You should know Lance Lowe. Yeah,
I know Lance.
Yeah, and he comes from your guys, under your guys, and he's now one of the most successful coaches in school cricket. Is like Jeppy is like one of the best hockey teams. I'm reading this book called Crossing Boundaries by Hussein Ayub. Yeah, and you tell me about your first class cricket career. You had like one season.
Yeah, I played EPB. I'm a wicketkeeper batsman, you know, wicketkeeper batsman.
Like most hockey players.
Yeah. But EP was always, we had very good wicketkeepers. In fact, the one guy, Garnet Kruger's uncle, Sidney Kruger.
Oh wow.
You speak to Garnet about Sidney. I mean, you know, down the leg, you would take in fact the bails off. You know, so he was a fantastic cricketer. But in my era, when I grew up, in fact, the wicketkeeper there was Fahmi Abrams. He was phenomenal.
So you were speaking about your first class season at EPB, and you were wicketkeeper batsman, and there was other better wicket keepers, like for instance Garnett's uncle, and then who was the other guy you were saying?
Now, Fahmi Abrams, he was the EPA wicketkeeper, fantastic, phenomenal batsman, and also exceptional wicketkeeper. So he was always there occupying the EPA. So I was the EPB wicketkeeper. And when Fahmi retired, Tutti, Alistair, was in fact, when he took over, also phenomenal, excellent pair of hands, good batter as well. So then he occupied that particular space. And then, I was always in the background within the EPB side. I think I played one game, in fact, against Western Province, Vince Barnes, and I mean, what a baptism! Phenomenal side, Vince.
Yeah,
and,
that was a Dirk team.
With Henry. That's right.
Yeah.
We played. In fact, I think we lost that game at the Adcock. So that was my only EPA game, in fact. But I played EPB for many years, in fact.
Yeah. No, lekker. Then the other thing is, can you tell us what stood out for you as a lekker memory? What stood out for you? Did you watch Bravo Jacobs?
Oh yeah, no. One of the most, he's an unsung hero. Bravo played hockey as well. Phenomenal hockey player. Hockey player. Football, I rate him as one of the best footballers, in fact. A cricketer, phenomenal cricketer. Totally correct. A lot of time on the ball. I mean, he was in a class of his own, in fact.
There was this other guy also, Neville, I think is his name.
Neville Francis was a bit...
Francis, Neville Francis.
Phenomenal. In my era, in fact, one of the also very close as an all-rounder is the guy called Stephen Dry.
Oh, yes. Stephen Dry, yeah.
I mean, athletics, phenomenal. So that's a quality of all-rounders we had. Football, in fact, he was an EP cricketer, EP hockey player, EP football, athletics. Another guy that comes to mind more in my era is a guy called James Smith. James Smith, in the very same, most probably category or caliber like Stephen Dry. Younger, he passed away now some years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, but phenomenal. Tennis, you name it. Cricket, football. There are many of those guys, in fact, that Vernon Malchus, one of the founder members of Downey Cricket Club as well.
Yeah. His name is mentioned in the book here. Vernon Malchus mentioned in the book here. Yeah.
That's right. He's also. That's correct. Yeah. So Dave was also phenomenal. He also played. I mean, he played tennis, table tennis. Cricketer, good all-round cricketer.
I heard from another friend of mine that there was one time where Dave Bravo was just entered a table tennis tournament and he won the tournament. He was like, yeah, no, he played table tennis, then he won the table tennis tournament. Earlier you were speaking about a krill. Which krill was that?
Yeah. That's the Kriel brothers. That was Mr. Freddie Kriel, right? I think his brother just passed away now. They involved with the St. Augustine's Cricket Club in Cape Town, right? Very influential family in terms of cricket. I know their son is the headmaster currently in Cape Town, but St. Augustine is one of the top clubs from our era. But Mr. Kriel, when we started playing, I went to Patterson High School as a student. We played, in fact, in the EP League. So that just shows you again, as a school team, right? We played in the EP League. And that is the reason why in those days, in fact, to increase the number of let's call it clubs, even Galvin Cricket Club started at school. So we had school teams that were affiliated to the bigger structure. It was an open club. So Stephen Dry, in fact, and James Smith Quinton Creel, my brother Trevor, Malcolm van Eck. We all played for Patterson High School. In fact, I was the captain, in grade standard 7. I captained, in fact, our social team as a youngster with all the teachers, and we played in the league. So the guys, I mean, my physics teacher, Vince, take the ball and bowl. But, you listen to me, I'm the captain on the field. And after the game, thank you very much, then you the stir again. But and we had a lot of students in the team as well. See? So that is where it started. Our school sport, I mean, if we're not going to get school sport right, and I'm not talking about the establishment, that is another animal on its own. I'm talking about guys, if we can get our school sport right, that for me is critical. You can't talk about transformation if you are not going to talk about, the school sport setup in the country. So that's a disjointed moment.
Here is a curveball for you, Uncle Gary. Because people don't want to become teachers anymore because they complain that the children that they teach it's a nightmare. How do you motivate people to then become teachers when they're going to do it just for the money, not for the love of it? How do you, because I remember, I know for a fact that my teachers, of my best friends I have today is people that was teaching me at school. So I'm trying to ascertain, how do you motivate people then to go teach in a community like Calvindale, or in a community like Rivoli, or in a community like Hanover Park?
Yeah, I think it's a special kind of person because, again, you're not going to become rich, right? You'll have rich women. It's not about, I always say, it's not about the pension, it's about the passion. Yeah. It's not about the pension, it's about the passion. But you need to change mindsets as well. And I mean, I think, the system is broken and people don't want to talk about that. Our school system is broken. Educators are, if we're not going to, in fact, understand the impact of a teacher, right? And I don't like the word educator. I'm old school. The teacher has got such an important role to play because why? That is really community. You're going to impact people, especially at the primary school level, where they have serious problems in terms of the social ills. You have that child in your hand, right? You can still mold that child in terms of values, right? And have a massive impact. And we don't realize that, even government, we don't realize the important role that teachers play, right, in the development of our communities. And that for me is such a no-brainer, educators. And the moment you do that, in terms of leadership as well, you'll turn a lot of these social evils around, but you can't do it alone. In education, we always talk about the three-legged pot. We talk about the parents, the child, right? And then quite clearly the school or the community. Mm. So without that, the pot is going to fall over. So in the olden days, even the churches as well, I mean, we must become more relevant. We must become more relevant. We had, in fact, most of us, we were playing in a brigade. Because why? It's something to do. We were marching, we had clubs, we go out with the scouts. Now, those things are not happening in the communities, and then we say, look here, the kids are. So we need to give alternatives, and that is where community-based clubs are coming from. What are the alternatives? Easy to say that, and sport offers you that, because on a relational, you need to have a relationship with the child. So guys, tell me your story, and once you understand the circumstances at home, then it's not about the academic work only. You talk about the emotional and the social impact that education has. It can't just be academic. So at the moment now, we need people with a social conscience to say, guys, hang on, if I go into an area like Rivoli, right, I need to offer these kids a caring ear. I'm caring or hearing what you are saying. And also, sport becomes critical because that is also one of the, let's call it, opportunities for them to escape poverty, right? But we need to create those opportunities. Unfortunately, at the moment now, those opportunities are created with people with, if you don't have money, if you're poor, thank you very much, you are discarded. And that is the problem in the country at the moment.
Yeah, that is a huge problem. It's one of the biggest problems not only in school, or it's just in general. It's just in general there. The one last thing, you were speaking about the brigade and churches. Denzel's got his own church, or he's got his own thing going on there in Cape Town. Yeah, I remember he was speaking about it. How he's got that thing there. Just Uncle Gary does. Yeah, we need more guys like you. I understand completely now. I said to the guys, by the end of the series, hopefully I'm still going to interview like 20 more guys or even 50 more guys. But by the end, I am going to be able to tell you, this is the reason why Calvindale produced so many players and people that represented South Africa at the highest level. And I can confidently say, and with pride and with excitement in my voice, that you are one of those guys that influenced that. And we need more people like you. And thank you so much for joining us here today, Uncle Gary. One last parting words. What would you want to see happen? This is the other question that I wanted to ask you. Resentment is a very big thing. Like, I interviewed some guys, and I could feel that in their voices there was certain resentment. It seems to me that you don't have no resentment of what happened during apartheid and stuff, but we need to speak about the opportunities that got lost, and we need to speak of, I know you said there's a victor's mentality instead of a victim's mentality, but we still need to, because you were, although you protected the children while you were at school, and you had them and their values and stuff, you still need to explain them the history. Do you agree with that statement or not?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with it, but I also think that you need to have a balanced approach. You see, I think there's too much sentiment. You know, we focus, and the moment you start focusing on the past too much and you live in the future, you know, for me, that becomes problematic, because we are here now. He says, look here, what is the vision? Where do we see ourselves? So if you're not going to have a vision, every time your reference is going to be in the past. That's why I don't want to, every time it's this webinar, that webinar. Black Lives Matter, very important, very important. How can we make the difference now? Because we've learned from the past. We've learned from the past.
That's my new quote now. If you don't have a vision, you will always live in the past and make excuses. That is what I'm leaving people with. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from a legend there, Uncle Gary Dolley. If you don't have a vision, you will always live in the past, and that will lead to excuses and resentment. Thank you so much for joining me here this afternoon, Uncle Gary. It was a pleasure. I can speak to you for hours, but we've been speaking for an hour already. So thank you so much for your time and taking time out on our busy schedule. Thank you so much, Uncle Gary.
Thank you very much, and well done to the team.
Thank you. Guys, if you like the video, please don't forget to click like. Please don't forget to subscribe. I want to hear some questions in the comments. We'll try and get that to Uncle Gary as well. Comment on the video, and whatever suggestions or whatever you took out of this video, please comment in the sections below. Thank you so much. I'm Joey Rasdien, and thank you for watching.
Audio Jungle.